beginning to make sense. But it turns out that equity release wasn't just financing luxuries. New research has shown that many people were taking money out of their houses just to get by. Here's Gillian Miller.
In a buoyant housing market, homeowners have increasingly drawn equity from their biggest asset, their property, something encouraged by competitive lenders. But whilst many have used it to indulge in life's luxuries, new research concludes more struggling households than first thought have simply done so to meet basic needs. Researchers at Durham University quizzed more than 9,000 UK households and found around a third of mortgages had gone up in any 1 year. That's 2 in 5 people remortgaging or drawing upon their existing mortgage without moving house. On average, between £5,000 and £7,500 was being borrowed, with some taking out up to 3/4 of their equity.
They're increasingly dipping into their housing wealth through their mortgages, not just to meet high days and holidays and special exciting events, but also to just manage the routine needs of everyday life. And what that means is that if people are going to find it more difficult to get mortgages to do this kind of thing, and equally if people are not able to release that equity in some other way by, for example, selling and trading down in a sticky housing market, what it means is that the credit crunch is having implications not just for the economy and for household budgets, but also for social welfare.
Many of those who borrowed against their homes did so because they feared redundancy, had experienced a relationship breakdown, or had increased the size of their family. But with the squeeze on credit, far fewer mortgage products and a collapsed housing market, the implications are now recognised as far greater for those who've come to rely on equity release to supplement their incomes.
2009 is going to be grim because what we're talking about here is companies struggling. Companies are going to have to reevaluate how they're going to cut costs. I think many businesses are just drifting at the moment, trying to get 2008 out of the way, and then they're going to have to relook at what they need for 2009 and managing much lower sales levels. We're talking about things across the board, mobile phones, we're talking about retailers, we're talking about every single company that you can possibly think of.
The current housing cycle has been very different from others, and people's attitudes to assets and inheritance are noticeably changing. In recent years, researchers found that across the UK, those in their 70s and 80s, but also a proportion in their 20s and 30s with young family, held traditional views and wanted to leave their property to family. Those in their 50s and 60s were more willing to borrow against their homes, spending the equity.
In previous housing cycles, the only way they could probably think about and use that was to think about something that they would use in older age if they traded down when they retired and released a lump sum, or more often that they would not use at all but they would leave to their children. But because, and in parallel with the changing availability of much more flexible mortgage finance, it's quite clear that people's attitudes to housing wealth have been changing. And in fact, as you move down the cohorts from older to younger people, you found a growing proportion of people are saying that they don't propose to save their housing wealth to later life or for the next generation.
So the credit crunch has become a welfare issue for struggling households, and those working in Scotland's banking sector will now be all the more vulnerable because they won't be able to rely as heavily, if at all, on bonuses or share options. Of those questioned in April about spending priorities for next year, the majority of Scots listed a holiday as their top priority. By last month, that had changed to paying off mortgages and debts.
Everybody wants everything, but do you really need it? So what you need to do now is to go and have a look at your house, look at things around your home, and say, do I need that? If not, then cut it out and look at different ways in which you can cross it off your budget. I mean, do you really need, all those various devices that you have around the home? Do you really need, a mobile phone per person around the house? Maybe you can just survive on one mobile phone share between all of you.
Borrowing against housing wealth cheaply, easily and without moving home has become a major factor in the recent escalation of personal debt. These findings appear to open up some real truths about the general perception of equity withdrawal. Scotland's retail figures out tomorrow show the biggest fall in sales in 8 years. From company debt to personal debt, 2009 is going to be payback time.
Now, last night in this programme we revealed that despite a report recommending